So we've been using here a dictionary solely for the purpose of getting at the uniqueness of the keys. So I'd like to introduce to you a better data structure for this, and it's called a set. Just as we can create words here as a dictionary with empty brackets or the function called dict, we can create words as a set by using the function called set. When we write this out, I'm going to change this for a moment here, since actually no, let me leave that in place. Right now I'm just going to return word, so it's not going to do anything. I'll let you figure that out. And so when we print this, I want to show what it means, what it looks like to print it. To add a word to a set, we use the word add. We use words.add, set.add. And if we run this now on our constitution, what we see is a data structure that is printed out with curly brackets, as if it were a dictionary. But you notice that there's not key value pairs, that each one of these entries is just separated by a comma. So it looks just like items in a series, in a list here. So we have the curly brackets, and then we have the items in a list, but these items now are unique. They're basically like just the keys of a dictionary, and without the values. So this is really a better data structure to use, just simply because it really gets at what we're trying to do. We're not using sets in this way in anywhere close to the power that sets actually provide us. The purpose, the real power of using a set would be to find out, for instance, let's say you had two files and you wanted to find out which words they had in common. You could create a set for file 1 and a set for file 2, and then you could ask for the intersection of those two sets. Here I'm showing you how you would do that with two ranges. So one going from 1 to 10, so it would actually be the numbers 1 to 9 because 10 is not included. And here 5 to 15, so again that would be 5 to 14. What are the numbers that they have in common? Well, they have the numbers 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 in common. That's an intersection. You can also find the union of two sets and the difference between two sets. Really, sets are just amazing. There's so much that you can do with them. So I really recommend you read help set in the REPL to figure out what are the things that you can do. So you don't have to use a set, but we haven't used one yet, and so I really wanted to introduce that here. I think it's definitely worth knowing what a set is and how you can use them. So let's move on now to filtering the words, because we don't want to use every single word that there is. I'm leaving this in place. The clean, I'm going to leave that in place for you to figure out. Right now it's just returning the word, and it needs to return a cleaned up version of the word. But we don't want to just arbitrarily take every single word that we come across. So after we've cleaned it up, so after we've removed the punctuation, we want to make sure that it fits to the minimum and maximum length of the words that we have defined, and we define those in the arguments. We know that they're going to be integer values. We know that they've been set to reasonable defaults of 3 and 6, and so we want to be able to use those values of 3 and 6, whatever is the min and max, to filter out the words. So one of the ways that we could do this is we could say, if the length of the word is less than args dot max word length, max word length, and the length of the word is greater than, or actually it's going to be equal to, and greater than or equal to args dot min word length, then we want to add the words. Let's just make sure that works. So now you see this looks like a very different list. Now those longer words have been moved out, and let's just run it with a minimum of 1 and a maximum of 3. And we see now it's a much different list. So that right there is, I don't know, that's kind of exciting. I think that's really cool to see how the program changes immediately with these command line parameters. There's a shorter way to write this. We can actually write a compound comparison, and we don't have to run len word twice like that. We can put this in the middle like that, and it makes it a lot easier to read. And so, you see it still works exactly the same way. So if the length of the word is in between these two ranges, that's when we want to add the word. We can put this idea into a filter. So if you're comfortable with this if statement, that's fine. If you like the way this code is written, I'm going to show you how to write this with a filter, because it's a higher order function, and I think that this is a lot of fun to use. So I'm going to take this idea and I'm going to move it into a filter. And I can create, for instance, let's see, how am I showing it to do here? Yeah, I'm going to define a function. That's a pretty good way. I'm going to define a function called wordlen, and it's going to take some word, and it's going to return this idea. It's going to return true or false. Is it true or false that the word is within this this bound? And then what's going to be cool, I think is cool, is that I can filter this through wordling. And then I add another paren here, and now I should get the same thing. So one of the things that's going on here by defining this wordling, if I were to try to define this outside of main, and I would try to put it right here, I need to move it over. Let's see, there we go. If I do this here, I don't have access to args. I would have to pass in these min and max values explicitly. So I could, I could pass in, min length and max length, and then I'd have to reference them inside the functions. But I don't want to do that. I want to be able to use I want to be able to reference args, and so I need to define this function inside of main, because that's where args is visible. This creates a closure, because this function is closing around that value, and it's basically a permanent part of this function because it can reference these values. And so now I have this, what I think is a pretty elegant little pipeline here. Take the line, lowercase it, split it, clean each one of those items, so each one of those words, and only let through the ones that match these conditions through this filter. And then I get each word, and I have to do words.add. I played around with this so that I could not find a shorter way of doing this, because you really have to say words.add. Set does not want to add multiple words at once, so we really need to say words.add for each individual word. So this is a pretty good way. And then at the end of this, I end up with my word length, my word list. Let me just run it and make sure that I'm still getting what I expect. Yep. And if I take away those, I get back the defaults. And so that's what we're going to be using as our source for the words for our password. So in the next video, we'll talk about how we're going to select those.